Welcome, everyone. Happy Tuesday, and really excited for this conversation here this morning. It was only 8 months ago that our routines, our work, our schooling, our entire worlds were turned upside down. When we need to focus on getting through days and facing down crisis upon crisis, it's hard to acknowledge and celebrate our resilience. And yet we've all seen it, how in these dark days, we have come together in new and powerful ways to support each other and our community. Here at Second Harvest Heartland, that sense of purpose towards the greater good has allowed us to muscle through. And for that, I am so thankful to our team, our partners, our supporters. This strong commitment to the greater good is also what created Minnesota Central Kitchen, a brand new COVID-era initiative of Second Harvest Heartland, dreamed up and launched with founding partners Chow Girls Catering and Loaves and Fishes. When in-person events were canceled in mid-March, the Chow Girls catering team did what they do best: make gorgeous, delicious food. They called on us and asked us to get the meals to anyone who needed one. And now, 8 months and 12 kitchens later, I am proud to share that we have surpassed 1 million meals. We're here to give thanks for Minnesota Central Kitchen this morning and to celebrate it as a bright light of a story in this most challenging year. Before I introduce the stars of this morning's conversation, let's remember why Minnesota Central Kitchen came to be quite literally over a weekend in March. We saw a growing demand for food assistance as folks were laid off. Kids lost easy access to school meals, and grocery stores faced a run on needed staples. We saw an influx of donated food product as restaurants, corporate kitchens, and caterers closed. And we saw food service staff, from chefs to dishwashers, on standby as they waited to see what the future held. Minnesota Central Kitchen was and is the answer. It has been a critical part of Second Harvest Heartland's COVID response, allowing us to reach people who may have otherwise fallen through the cracks in the hunger relief system. These are our neighbors in crisis and our neighbors without the ability or space to cook. Folks without access to ingredients such as healthy proteins and produce. Individuals and families not familiar, comfortable, or able to visit food shelves, many new to needing some help. And so many more people juggling work, childcare, illness, stress, or anxiety. Minnesota Central Kitchen is providing the moment of relief, of comfort, of peace of mind that only having a meal ready at the end of the day, a long day, can provide. Here at Second Harvest Heartland, we are incredibly proud of the over 81 million pounds of food we've distributed since COVID began. This is literal tons of food like fresh produce, dairy, and protein, along with in-demand shelf-stable items. That said, prepared meals have become an increasingly important part of the equation in our fight against hunger. There is so much more to say about Minnesota Central Kitchen and all of the impressive partners who comprise it, which is why I'm so grateful to have Emily Paul, one of our superstars. She's the managing director of Minnesota Central Kitchen, here with me today, and she'll share more on the mechanics of the collaborative and its impact so far. Then we'll hear from award-winning chef David Fhima of Fhima's in Minneapolis. David, along with Justin Sutherland of the Handsome Hog in St. Paul, are the culinary force behind Minnesota Central Kitchen's service to families in the Roseville School District with beautiful, culturally relevant foods. Unfortunately, Justin's not with us as he had planned this morning. He had canceled and delayed flights, so he's not able to join us, but I know he's with us in spirit. And thanks to all of you for being here today, and especially this week. And thank you to all of the donors joining us this morning too. You got behind us early to help make Minnesota Central Kitchen what it is today, and we are rocking and rolling. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now, Emily, we'll have you kick us off.
Great, thanks, Allison. Beautiful introduction to the nitty gritty of the program, which I can speak to a little bit here. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us this morning. Allison mentioned this came about in the middle of March with the resources of shuttered kitchens that were closing down left and right, catering companies, restaurants, small mom and pop food operations up to large corporate kitchens, everyone wanting to plug in saying we have space and we have workforce. How can we support the growing need for food in our community? So we had facility as a resource. We had food rescue. We had the second harvest supply chain of food bank resources. We had food that we were recovering literally by the minute as institutions were shutting down. That food came in through our Meal Connect app that some of you might know about and some of you might be contributing to. It's a way to connect food donors, someone who has food, with our meals programs. So we use that. Finally, we obviously had a surplus of furloughed workers who are skilled, who communicate in love and kindness and caring and dignity through food and wanted to help. And finally, we had folks who were hungry. So that imperfect storm became Minnesota Central Kitchen, as Allison mentioned, over one weekend. Within 48 hours, we were at about 2,000 meals. Fast forward to now, as Allison mentioned, a week and a half ago, we hit 1 million meals. That's about 24,000 meals a week that we are cranking out of our 12 kitchens. And how these meals are packaged is really in response to who in the community needs these meals. So we are trying to, instead of making people come to food, we're trying to bring meals to where folks are and in the packaging size they need. If it's a single serving hot meal to an encampment, we want to do that. If it is a 2-serving meal package to an individual who needs a couple meals to fill those gaps, we're trying to do that. We have family meals, which David will talk about in a little bit. And we have large scale food production that are going to several of our 8 community partners who will warm that food on site and distribute it to anyone who walks up or drives up in the community needing a meal. So we really want to make sure we're meeting people where they are. We had just seen a slide up on the screen there that was our Google map that really plots who and where is Minnesota Central Kitchen, our kitchen partners. Like I said, we have 12 kitchens throughout the metro that are working with 8 different distribution partners. As Allison mentioned, Loaves and Fishes has about 40, just shy of 40 dining sites that are moving Minnesota Central Kitchen meals out into the community. We have our partners. We have the Good Acre Food Hub that's helping us move food. We have farms and farmers that we're gleaning from during the growing season. We have obviously our other distribution partners in the community that are making sure that the folks that they are working with and serving have access to Minnesota Central Kitchen meals. So as you can see on this map, the dots are plentiful, and we hope that those dots can even grow and spread more throughout our state. A couple other aspects of the program that I think are important to note before you hear from David is that, as I mentioned, we want to try to move meals to people. So not everyone can come to a meal. So we're partnering with Northside Achievement Zone, Appetite for Change, and North Point in North Minneapolis to take meals to families who are homebound due to COVID, who might be barrier to accessing a meal because they don't have transportation. So we have a home delivery program that's moving those meals out to families in North Minneapolis. We work with the UMN Student Food Shelf because some of you might not know, 1 in 5 college students is hungry. And so if we can move prepared meals, actually that are prepared on campus by the Campus Club restaurant, to the student food shelf, we feel like we can plug in and fill those gaps for students who are food insecure. Finally, we also, as I mentioned earlier, are moving meals to the encampment. So each week we are moving food that is hot. Most of our meals are fully cooked, prepared, cooked, and chilled, but these meals are hot because they're going to folks who are living outside. So we have teams working with Involve MN, which is an outreach organization here in Minnesota, to move those meals both to St. Paul and to Minneapolis. So We want to say no stone is unturned when it comes to moving these prepared meals out into our community. We also want to hear from some of you if you know of a need in the community, if you know of an organization that is in need of food that maybe didn't do food before, but gosh, the folks they're working with are saying our number one need, number two need, number one need is food. We want to be able to plug in, so please reach out. That's the topical high level details of the program. Let's get in the weeds with Chef David. I would love for Allison to make that transition to David and introduce him, and I'll plug in along the way, but you need to hear it from the chef's mouth on the wonderful work that we're doing with Roseville Family Table in Roseville. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Emily. And as you can all feel and see and hear, there's a lot of passion and energy needed behind this initiative. And thank you so much, Emily, for all you do every single day to keep us going and to think creatively about how we move forward. So as Emily mentioned, we have 12 kitchens, and we're here today to talk about one of those 12 kitchen teams and the support they provided to students and families through the new Roseville Family Table, a program of Roseville Schools Nutrition Services team. So David Fhima, thank you for joining us here today and for your partnership in fighting COVID-era hunger. Please introduce yourself, and I cannot wait to have this discussion with you because you've been in high gear.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much. I feel like my staff should be on the call. Justin's staff should be on this call. They're the heavy lifters, and they do a lot of the stuff. We create the meals, and we keep telling them this tastes right, it doesn't taste right, but they are peeling and they're cutting, and so all the credit goes to them. My name is David Fhima. From Fhima's Minneapolis. We are partners with we are lucky to be partners with different organizations like the Minnesota Timberwolves and Lynx, Lifetime Fitness, and others. So excited to be here to talk about this because this is in a year that has been so challenging to be able to do what we're doing right now is just so good for our souls, so good for our spirits. And it really is what Justin's team and our team is doing together in helping in a small part because before us, the founder, Chow Girls, and all the work that you guys are doing, and Emily, the maestro conducting the orchestra out there on Saturday mornings and at every hour, that's really the bulk of the work. We are just behind the scenes doing some of it. So thank you for having me, and I'm excited to share everything with you that we are doing.
Thank you, David. And just a quick reminder before we get into a little discussion, David, I want to direct the viewers to the chat where our team will be dropping in helpful links, resources if you are looking to donate or if you need a little help. We will put those resources in the chat. So watch that and certainly put your questions in there as well, and we will try and get to them. But first up, David, I guess first things first, is a treasure within our local restaurant community with these new hospitality restrictions and, surging COVID cases. First and foremost, how are you doing and how is your team doing?
Well, Justin is not here, but I'll speak on his behalf as well. Him and I are in constant communications as well. We're doing good. I mean, we're doing good because at one point of pivoting, which a word I hate, the word of 2020, pivot, should be taken out of the vocabulary. Hopefully 2021 will never say that word again. We're doing okay. Our staff is struggling. We're struggling, but we are. I heard a Rabbi Sachs who made a speech a while ago, and I think I shared it before. And he just passed away. He was an incredibly wise man. He goes, when good things happen to bad people, I don't know if you've read that book. It's an incredibly good book. and something like that. My wife is correcting me right now, but but he says there's this guy sitting on the Titanic, and and he's so Rabbi Sachs asked what everything that's happening during the election, everything that's happening during with COVID, how are you guys doing? And so the answer was, hey, he was holding a glass of scotch, and he says, I asked for an ice cube, um, and he's on the Titanic, and he's getting more than that. I think we're getting in terms of challenges, we're getting a lot of epiphanies are happening. A lot of things are telling us that helping the community is more important. Um, cherishing our families are more important. So we are in, as financially as we are struggling, I think we're discovering a lot of good things that are happening. And I think we are trying to be philosophical and balance all the good that is being created and not let the bad sort of drown it out. So I hope that answers it, but
Yeah, no, that does. And thank you. And let's dive in a little bit to your work. Why, I think this is the perfect follow-up. Why did you decide to partner with Minnesota Central Kitchen, especially when you are facing so many struggles?
well, I think that the question of anyone, why would you say no? Why wouldn't you do it? That is a bigger question. I think the minute we were shut down, the first shutdown, we have a lot of leftover foods, and we started giving it away. And we've been doing that on a much small scale for many, many months, and we haven't been talking about it, or there's been very little discussions about it. And so when this big endeavor came on our plate, there's nothing to think about. I mean, the work that Minnesota Central Kitchen does with the other 11 partners is phenomenal. A million meal. We are a tiny little speck of that. So it's really very important to understand the most important piece of these meals is that it's feeding people that are in need. But there is a trickling effect. There is a bigger trickling effect that I think is really very, very, very important, especially for the hospitality industry. It keeps the lights on. We brought 15 employees back that are working 35 to 40 hours a week. That's huge. They are off the unemployment. They are getting paid to do work. We are partnering with local farmers and buying their ingredients. There is lights that are being turned on. There are landlords that are not worried about, is this tenant going to leave? There is an incredible trickling effect that starts first and foremost on that family, on those people who are in need, that I think is huge. And I hope that doesn't get lost, because as the work that Minnesota Central Kitchen is doing is not only feeding the community, it's helping so many people in the community. And that is really huge. And that, to me, you should have a program in these kitchens and people coming back to work, and you should see the smiles on their face. And you should see when the governor announced we're shutting down again, and they're worried, and we go, well, we still are doing some work with Minnesota. We're going to still have a lot of work for you. And they go, oh my gosh, it's like almost somebody is giving them a gift. So it's not only the community being fed, it's the people who we are getting the food from that are being taken care of, the people who are working there, and then they're getting paid, and then they're feeding their families. There is a chain link out there that I wish somebody would just sort of talks about, because it's big. So
Yeah.
it's not the meal that's being eaten and consumed and a belly that's happy. There is so much more after that.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it so fun. It's a win, 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 win on so many fronts, David. And thank you for bringing that up. You're doing some work, really interesting work with the Roseville School District's Nutrition Services Program. And can you explain how you're serving those families right now and a little bit about that work?
Well, absolutely. So we do 3,360 meals, and we work directly. I mean, prior to starting the work, we've had Emily and us had so many conversations and getting so many directives from her of how this program should be. So let me be clear. The fact that we're making these meals and these meals are being given away, please do not misunderstand that this is a giveaway. This is not a cheap toy with your Happy Meal. This is nutritionally sound meals made by chefs, created by chefs, and product that is being made that is fresh, that is put together. So what we're doing, we are splitting this meal in culturally sensitive meals. So we're doing a sort of a what I call a neutral meal in Minnesota driven menu that has mass appeal. We're doing Latinx to the for the Latin community. We're doing Hmong meals, and few of the Hmong chefs that I call on say, "Hey, I'm running out of ideas. What do you guys think?" And we have so many Latino, a lot of Latinx people. I'm trying to make sure I am saying the word properly, that are working in our kitchen, and they are involved in creating those meals. So there are 3,360 meals. Each menu is made into a group of 4 meals. Each of them has a breakdown of nutrition in terms of carbs, protein, and vegetables. We try and make sure we are gluten sensitive, nut sensitivities, dairy sensitivities. We're not always that, but we try and make sure that that is part of the program as well. And also trying to make sure we follow a guideline of portions. You're getting 5 ounces to 6 ounces of protein. You're getting so much starch. So the meal is not only a meal that is being created in terms of being sensitive, that it has a nutritional component to it, that it has, that when you are opening at home, that you feel like somebody made it for you, for your community. The big thing for me that I really think of a lot is when you are at home and you bring this meal and you open it up, that the message that you're getting that somebody cares, and this is just not a giveaway. And we give them obviously Emily worked on this cool machine that we have to put the nutritions, the information on it. Thank God I have daughters and wife who know how to operate this stuff and put the stickers on. But there is so many little steps to make sure that when this meal is consumed, there's a pride involved. Nobody wants to be given anything away. People want to earn, especially when it comes to food, especially in these communities who have never asked anyone to help them or do anything for them. So we want to make sure that there's a pride factor out there, that they feel that their pride is intact, and as they're eating it, there's hope. And we give them the information how to heat the meal up when they get at home, and we test some of that stuff. I've never done so many meals in my life, so I'm learning as well. And we falter and we fall on our face a little bit. And sometimes the staff says, "What are you thinking of? This is not working." And we pivot on it. But that's sort of, I hope it makes sense. My explanation makes sense. That's sort of how we're putting it together.
It does. And the meals I have seen at some of, I've had the chance to be at one of the schools on a Friday after work. They are beautiful, 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 beautiful. People say you eat with your eyes, and boy, David, just well done. And I know, Emily, you've got maybe a little something to share.
Yeah. I just want to chime in with that sentiment a little bit too. Is, in week 1, when folks were driving up in their cars, they didn't know what to expect, and there was definitely a head hung low. And sure, I'll take the Hmong menu or I'll take the Latinx menu. In week 2, people are driving up with a smile on their face. They're excited to try the menu they tried, the flavor profiles and the cultural profile of what they tried last week, or something totally new. Week over week, the numbers are growing. Week over week, the happiness on people's faces and the excitement and the feedback of enthusiasm. Oh, last week's, beef tips were amazing, or, oh my gosh, that shepherd's pie, unbelievable. It grows, it's infectious. It's infectious to the volunteers, to the kids in the back seat of the car. They're excited to see and to eat what David has prepared for them. So I think it's really important. One other thing I want to speak to too, David, you mentioned the reverberations in our food system and the positive impacts of this program. Across our 12 kitchens, we have brought back to work or new hired over 180 food service workers across our 12 kitchens. That's big. That's really big. And I think we'll probably be close to 200 by the beginning of next year. Also, the idea of supporting our local kind of supply chain and food ecosystem. We spent over $100,000 on ingredients from BIPOC farmers, Indigenous vendors in our area, in partnership with the Good Acre and with other independent farms that are really supporting local growers. That even though, 60 to 70% of our ingredients to make these Minnesota Central Kitchen meals are free, are through either the Second Harvest food supply chain or through food recovery on that Meal Connect app I mentioned. So with a 30 to 40% food spend that is needed, we want to make sure that those dollars are thoughtful. And as David mentioned, that they're really staying within our area, within our purveyors here. So I think it's a really important component that all the effects and the stakeholders to make a Minnesota Central Kitchen meal are really rooted in our local community. And in breaking down barriers around food preference and cultural preference, in breaking down barriers in the supply chain. We really want to make sure that everyone is included. Everyone is at this table to make these meals and is able to enjoy them. So thanks for mentioning that, David. I think it's a really important component and really pillar to this program.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you. Thank you. And I think, Allison, we maybe have a couple questions.
Yeah, in fact, building off a little bit about what Emily just said there, Tommy Beava's everybody's favorite person in community. Thank you for being here, Tommy. Asked a really great question. And I'd like Emily, maybe you to take it first. It's one quick question and then one to maybe elaborate more on. Tommy's asking about first about Twin Cities Mutual Aid and their great work delivering food in response to the uprisings. And if we've had any conversations as Minnesota Central Kitchen in collaborating with them. So that's question one. And then the bigger question, and maybe you can elaborate on what you just said, Emily, what is or can MCK do to increase the number of BIPOC folks in food and food production to make, in part, our model more sustainable and to better diversify our food production systems?
Yep, those are great. Hi, Tommy. Nice to hear from you. So with regard to Twin Cities Mutual Aid, yes, we've had, I think I've had two official phone calls with them. And, we wanted to make sure, and I think by way of this Google map that Allison pulled up on the screen earlier, we want to make sure that we're plotting kind of all the needs and that we are taking these Minnesota Central Kitchen meals out into the community where people are in need. So part of it is messaging and is explaining what is an MCK meal. Believe it or not, 10 months, even though it seems like an eternity in COVID times, is pretty new for a new program. So we're trying to make sure that we are using that network to identify where there is need for prepared meals. If that's partnering with food shelves, that's partnering with pop-up food distributions, if that is working with and anything from a supportive housing unit all the way through a diaspora population organization. So we want to make sure that really we're creating food and meeting people where they are and organizations where they are with food. So the answer is yes to yes and more. We're always willing and wanting to connect. And then in terms of BIPOC representation within our MCK kitchens, as well as our vendor supply chain, I spoke to a little bit about that a minute ago when it comes to supporting BIPOC vendors, but also the idea of expanding both the cultural relevancy of the food we're creating. I think that's really important because you can't just take any old meal to any old person. We want to make sure that people are enjoying the food. So creating food that is responsive in ingredient, as well as flavor profile, as well as just overall execution, I think is really important. So we will probably be expanding that in the coming year to address different specific cultural food preference and then food needs in the community. So we are starting to really, flourish, I think, in terms of meeting folks where they are. And this program in Roseville is really a great first step. And as David mentioned, I think we're really relying on the community to both direct the menu for some of this food, but also the supply chain for ingredients. So
Thanks, Emily. Allison, do we have, and thank you, Tommy. Thanks for joining us. Allison, do we have another question?
Yeah, one quick question, David, for you. Rich is wondering, that book author that you referenced at the start, people want to know who that was, what that was. It sounds like you piqued some interest there, if you have it off the top of your head.
Yeah, it's Rabbi Sachs. The title is When Bad Things Happen to Good People. It's really a really wonderful book. He was the chief rabbi in England, and he was knighted by the Queen, and an incredibly wise and good man. So that's the name of the author and the title of the book.
Awesome. Thank you, David. And I know we are at time, and so I'll wrap things up and just say, from our team to all of you, and to this community and every person at the table with us, we are eternally grateful for everyone's support, everyone's work, everyone's passion, and especially to you, Emily, and you, David. And I saw Chef Liz on the call too. We can't do any of this without all of you. So thank you. And let's keep going. We'll see everyone soon.